I booked this Airbnb because it looked minimal, clean, and honestly, boring. And I needed boring. I'd been traveling for weeks for work and just wanted a few nights where nothing weird happened. It was a one-bedroom guest house behind someone's main home, just outside a quiet mountain town. The host had good reviews, nothing over the top, just friendly, respectful, responsive. I liked that. The place had a strange layout though. As soon as you entered, the kitchen was directly to the left, and then the living area opened up with a single hallway going toward the bedroom and bathroom. At the very end of that hallway was a locked door with no label. It looked like it hadn't been opened in a while. Paint slightly chipped around the edges, a faint scrape mark on the floor like it had been forced shut. The bedroom had a large mirrored closet with sliding doors. Inside, hangers, a folded spare blanket, nothing much. But I did notice something weird when I tossed my backpack in. In the upper corner near where the wall met the ceiling, there was a faint red dot. At first I thought it was a smoke detector, but it was lower than it should be, and it had a tiny lens poking out beneath it. I pulled a chair over and got up to inspect. Yeah, it was a camera, hidden in what looked like a fake motion detector. But here's the thing, it wasn't facing the bed. It was aimed into the closet, into that empty space where I'd just tossed my bag. I stood there for a minute trying to process why anyone would put a camera inside a closet. I stepped back, closed the closet door slowly, and just stood there staring at the mirrored reflection. My first thought was, okay, maybe it's motion triggered, maybe it's some outdated security system the host forgot about. But that didn't make sense. Why aim it into a closet? It wasn't watching the door. It wasn't positioned to catch movement. It was like it was waiting for something. I debated messaging the host. I even typed out the question twice. Hey, quick question. What's the deal with the camera in the closet? But I couldn't bring myself to send it. I didn't want to tip them off before I figured out what I was dealing with. Instead, I took a couple photos of the device with my phone, then used the flashlight to inspect the closet more carefully. That's when I noticed something else. At the very back of the closet floor, beneath the blanket, there was a thin seam in the wood, almost like a panel. I pushed on it. It didn't budge. But there was a small hole along the edge, just big enough to hook a finger in. I hesitated, then pulled. The board lifted like a trapdoor, and underneath was just blackness. No light, no sound, just a hollow square cut into the floor beneath the closet. I couldn't see how deep it went. I used my flashlight again and lowered it inside. There was nothing, just bare dirt and a couple of small wooden beams like part of an old foundation. But something down there had been disturbed. The dirt wasn't even. It looked dug. Like someone had recently moved it around. I didn't touch anything else. I put the board back, closed the closet door, and walked straight out to the little patio. My hands were shaking a bit, not from fear exactly, but that creeping instinct that something was wrong and I couldn't explain it. I sat out there for almost an hour, just refreshing the Airbnb app, checking the listing photos again. None of them showed the closet. None of them mentioned the locked door in the hallway either. Eventually, I went back inside and turned every light on. I kept checking over my shoulder like an idiot, half expecting someone to be standing behind me. I moved the chair under the closet camera and stuffed a towel over it, jamming it into the lens until I was sure it couldn't see anything. I was done pretending it wasn't there. I thought maybe I'd sleep on the couch in the living room, but I couldn't settle. Every noise made me jump. A floorboard creaked, the fridge motor hummed. Normal stuff, but in that kind of silence, it was all too loud. Around 2 a.m., I decided to try sleeping for real. I left the bedroom light on. I don't even care how childish that sounds. I needed to be able to see. And that's when I noticed the closet door was open again, just a few inches, enough to see the edge of the mirror glinting. I know I closed it. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, staring, waiting for movement. Nothing. I walked over slowly and slid it shut again, this time all the way until I heard the click. Then I wedged the desk chair against it just in case. I finally drifted off sometime after 3. It wasn't restful. I kept waking up in these weird, sharp jolts, like my brain was checking for danger before my body even knew why. Around 4:30, I woke again. Dead quiet, the kind of quiet where your ears feel like they're straining. Then from the hallway I heard a low creak. Just one, like someone had stepped on the wood near that locked door. I didn't move. I just lay there, listening. It didn't happen again. I tried to tell myself it was the house settling, but I wasn't convinced. I stared at the ceiling until the sun started to rise, and then I finally got up. I made coffee with shaking hands, barely drank it. I just wanted to be out of there. Before leaving, I went back into the bedroom one more time. The towel I'd stuffed over the camera, it had fallen, it was on the floor. That might have been nothing. Could have slipped. But it didn't look like it had just dropped straight down. It looked tossed, like someone had pulled it off. My skin went cold. I packed everything up in under 10 minutes. As I zipped my bag, I heard a soft knock. Not at the front door. At the locked door at the end of the hallway. Just a single knock. Then silence. I walked to the front, opened the door, and left without locking it behind me. I drove straight to a coffee shop downtown, sat in a corner booth and started writing everything down while it was fresh. The knocking, the open closet, the camera. Especially the camera. That part kept looping in my head. Why aim it inside the closet unless there was something to watch in there? Or maybe someone? I emailed Airbnb support, sent photos of the device, and explained the situation. They replied faster than I expected, automated at first, then a follow-up asking for the listing link. I sent it over. 2 hours later, the listing was suddenly gone, completely wiped, like it had never existed. I tried searching by the host's name. Nothing. No trace. I called the Airbnb support line to ask what was going on, and the person on the phone told me the listing had been temporarily removed pending investigation. I asked them if the camera was legal. They told me cameras inside private areas like bedrooms or bathrooms violated their terms. That was it. No apology, no details. Just that same calm, careful voice, like they'd said it before. That evening I got a new booking at a regular hotel downtown. No closets, no hidden rooms. Just a plain bed, a bolted door, and fluorescent lights that made everything look safer than it probably was. But just as I was getting ready to sleep, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, no name, no message, just a photo. Grainy, blurry, taken from a low angle. It showed me standing in the closet. I stared at the photo for maybe a full minute, frozen. My mind kept trying to find some way it wasn't real. Maybe it was photoshopped, maybe I didn't look closely enough. But I knew that shirt. I remembered standing in that exact position looking down into the floorboard. That picture was taken while I was in the closet, which means someone was watching the live feed. I called the number immediately. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. A robotic voice. This number is not available. No name. I tried texting. Who is this? How did you get this photo? Nothing. I called again. Straight to voicemail now. I just sat there staring at my phone, waiting for the screen to light up again. It didn't. But I couldn't let it go. I opened the photo again and started looking at the background, trying to see if there was a reflection, a clue, anything. And then I noticed something. In the bottom right corner of the image, you could see the mirror. Just barely. But there was a faint blur in it, something darker than the rest. A figure, low to the ground, kneeling. I zoomed in as far as my phone allowed. It looked like a person, just a vague outline but hunched like they were crouched inside the closet behind me. I felt sick. I didn't remember anyone being in there. I would have seen them, right? Unless they were behind the fake wall, the one I opened. The one with the fresh dirt. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about that space beneath the floor, how uneven the dirt looked, like someone had been buried, or worse, waiting. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined a hand reaching up through that seam in the wood, fingers curling over the edge as I slept a few feet away. The next morning, I went to the police. I showed them the photo, explained the hidden camera, the message from the unknown number. They took it seriously. Kind of. They said I should have reported it right away, that maybe the property was involved in previous complaints. But without an active listing or an exact address, there wasn't much they could do. The host had already pulled everything down. No name, no contact, nothing traceable. Still, one officer agreed to check out the property. I gave him everything I had, photos, the directions, even the original confirmation email. He told me they'd follow up. That was 2 weeks ago. I never heard back. I tried calling the department 3 times. No answer, no return call. I started wondering if I imagined parts of it, but then I'd open that photo again and feel everything in my chest tighten. I haven't used Airbnb since. I don't even stay in guest houses anymore, just corporate hotels with check-in desks and loud lobbies and too much light. But even there, I check for cameras, smoke detectors, mirrors. I don't trust anything with corners or creaks. I don't trust closets at all, not after what I saw. Last week I got a letter, not an email, a real envelope, no return address. Inside was a single photo, printed, not digital. It was the same bedroom, same closet. Except this time, the photo was taken from inside the trapdoor in the floor. Dirt in the foreground, camera looking up, and in the frame, me, lying on the bed, asleep, from beneath the floorboards. I don't know when it was taken, I don't even know how, but it had to have been that first night, before I noticed the camera, before I stuffed the towel into the lens, before I realized the closet door kept opening on its own, before I heard that single knock from the hallway. The photo is grainy and dim, but you can see my face clearly. You can see the faint glow of the bedside lamp. You can see that I'm unaware, completely exposed. And if you look close enough, you can make out the edge of something in the corner. Part of a shoe, maybe. Or a hand. Someone was down there, just inches below me, watching. I threw the photo away. Burned it, actually. But that image is still printed in my mind. I think about it every night now, right before I fall asleep. And I wonder, how many places have floors like that? How many closets have space behind the walls, and if someone is watching, how would I ever really know? The place was cheap, that's why I took it. I was in the middle of relocating for work and needed something temporary while I apartment hunted in the city. A friend of a friend had this short-term rental, small 2-bedroom on the edge of a weird, quiet neighborhood. Nothing on Airbnb, just cash and keys. I didn't ask too many questions. The house had this weird, narrow hallway that connected the kitchen to both bedrooms, and something about it felt off, like the scale was wrong. You could stand in that hallway and feel like the walls were pressing in just slightly. The first night I slept there, I noticed a sound. It came just after midnight. A soft thump. Then another. Then a dragging noise, slow and rhythmic. My bedroom was along the side of the house. I figured it was plumbing or rats or both. It was an old place, and old houses always make noise. I turned up a podcast and tried to ignore it. But I remember thinking it sounded deliberate, like something was moving in there, changing position. The next night it started again. Same time. Same dragging noise. But this time it moved. It started near the baseboard by my bed, then shifted further down the wall toward the closet. Not inside the room, inside the wall. I knocked once out of some dumb impulse. It stopped instantly. I didn't sleep much after that. I kept staring at the wall, waiting to hear it again. But it was dead silent, the kind of silence that makes you question if you imagined the whole thing. I woke up groggy, annoyed, and already trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was rats. Big ones. But that didn't explain the way it responded to the knock. Like it knew. That afternoon, I asked the guy who rented me the place, Mark, if he ever had issues with rodents. He kind of laughed it off and said, "Nah, not anymore," which stuck with me. Not anymore? I wanted to ask more, but he brushed past it, said to let him know if I heard anything weird. He didn't seem surprised, just, tired. Later that night, I was brushing my teeth when I heard the noise again, this time from the bathroom wall, near the vanity. Same dragging sound, then something lighter, like a fingertip scraping drywall. I froze. The bathroom mirror rattled slightly, not like it was loose, more like it had been nudged from behind. I backed out slowly and left the light on. I tried to sleep in the other bedroom that night. It didn't help. Around 3 a.m. the noise returned, but not just from one wall. It moved, like something was crawling through the house just beneath the surface. One wall to the next, always behind me, always just a few feet away, and I swear, at one point, it paused, right by the head of the bed. I couldn't take it anymore. That morning I moved the furniture in my bedroom and tapped along every section of the wall. It sounded solid mostly, but there was one spot near the corner that gave off a slightly hollow echo, like there was space behind it. I knelt down and ran my fingers along the baseboard. It looked normal, but the paint was newer in that section, fresher, covered up. That night I stayed awake, sitting in the hallway with all the lights off. I just wanted to hear it again. I had this thought I couldn't shake. Whatever was in the wall, it was moving with purpose, like it knew the layout of the house better than I did. Around 1:15 a.m. I heard it again, behind the bathroom, a slow, low shuffle, followed by what sounded unmistakably like breathing. I grabbed my phone and turned on the recorder, not sure what I expected to capture. I pressed my ear against the drywall near the hallway linen closet. I could hear something shifting, slow, deliberate, almost like knees brushing insulation. Then quietly, like it was only inches away, I heard a whisper. One word, broken and breathy. Wait. I fell backward, phone clattering across the hardwood. I didn't go back to bed that night. I stayed in the kitchen with every light on, door locked, back to the wall. The next morning, I replayed the audio. The word was there. Barely audible, distorted, but definitely there. Not a rat. Not the pipes. Something alive. Something watching. I sent the recording to a friend of mine. He works in audio production. I didn't tell him anything about the house. Just asked if he could clean up the file. He messaged back 10 minutes later. Who the hell is whispering? Is this some kind of prank? That confirmed it. I wasn't losing it. Someone, or something, was inside the walls of that house. I went back to the hallway where I'd heard the breathing. This time I brought a screwdriver and a small pry bar. I didn't care if I lost the deposit. I needed to know. I started pulling at the baseboard, expecting layers of insulation, maybe an old vent shaft. But behind the drywall, there was a narrow cavity, about 2 feet wide, just enough room for someone to slide through sideways. And it went deep, way deeper than it should have, like someone had carved out a tunnel between the studs. I stuck my phone in with the flashlight on, reached as far as I could. The light caught on something metal in the distance, a folding chair, propped against the inside of the wall. Next to it, what looked like a blanket, and bones. Chicken bones, I think, picked clean. That's when I realized whoever was in there wasn't just passing through. They were living in the walls, hiding, watching me from inches away every night. I slammed the board back into place and left the house immediately. Parked down the street, windows rolled up, engine running. I didn't go back inside until the sun came up. I told Mark, the guy who rented me the place, that I was leaving. I didn't mention the tunnel, the breathing, any of it. I just said something vague about needing to cut the stay short. He didn't ask questions. Just said, no problem. Keys in the mailbox. No refund. No follow-up. Like he already knew. I stayed at a motel for the next 2 nights, just trying to sleep without listening for sounds between the walls. But the house wouldn't leave my mind. That voice, the chair, the hollow space. I needed to know if anyone else had stayed there, if anything like this had happened before. So I did something stupid. I looked the address up on a few old rental forums, even Craigslist. That's when I found a post from almost a year earlier. Different name, different owner, but same address. The post was buried in a complaint thread. Someone had written, "Avoid this place." I heard voices in the walls. Thought it was the neighbor at first, but the walls moved. I swear they moved. No one had replied to it. No one took it seriously. But the timestamp hit me hard. It was posted in March. That was about 2 months before the property went off-grid, before it stopped appearing on rental platforms. Which meant this has been going on for a while, maybe years, and no one stopped it. I went back one last time. I told myself it was to take photos of the crawl space, to report it, document it properly, but part of me knew I just needed proof. That I wasn't imagining any of it. That the whispers, the breathing, the way the hallway felt off, all of it was real. I parked across the street and waited until evening. The house was dark. No movement. I let myself in with the spare key still under the mat. Everything was exactly how I left it. Except the bedroom door was closed. I'd left it open. I know I had. I stood in the living room for a long time before I could bring myself to walk down the hall. The air felt heavy. Still. Like the whole house was waiting. I went straight to the linen closet, peeled back the panel again. The space was still there. The chair was gone. So was the blanket. I aimed my flashlight in deeper this time, and the beam landed on something new. Scratches along the studs. Vertical marks, fingernail-sized, all the way down, like someone had braced themselves in the dark and clawed slowly toward the opening. I heard something then, from behind the drywall across the hall. It wasn't shuffling this time. It was breathing again, but closer, louder, more intentional. And then, right behind the closet wall, a slow knock. 1, 2, 3. Then a pause. Then, from behind the sheetrock itself, the same voice as before. "You came back." I ran. I didn't even close the panel. I sprinted through the front door and didn't stop until I was back at the car, fumbling the keys into the ignition with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. As I drove away, I checked the rearview mirror. Just for a second. Just long enough to see the bedroom light flick on. No one should have been in that house. I filed a police report the next day. I showed them the old forum post, the tunnel behind the walls, even the audio recording. The officer who took the report didn't look surprised, said he'd heard similar things before, especially in that part of town. He told me to follow up in a few days. I never heard back. A week later, I passed by the house again just to see. The windows were covered now, new blinds drawn tight. A different car in the driveway. Someone else had moved in. I thought about stopping, saying something, but what was I going to do? Knock on the door and tell them there's a person living between their walls? Sometimes I think about that space, how narrow it was, how far it stretched, how quiet it must be, tucked inside the structure of someone else's life. And I wonder how long someone could live like that, unseen, unbothered, just waiting for the next tenant to lie down, turn off the lights, and start to listen. Last night I got a voicemail from an unknown number. No words, just 30 seconds of low, muffled audio. At first I thought it was static, but when I played it again I could hear something else. Breathing, that slow, familiar pattern. Then, faintly, what sounded like movement through something tight, wood creaking, a fabric drag. And then, right at the end, "Don't leave me again." I blocked the number, deleted the message, tried to laugh it off. But every creak in my apartment now sounds like someone shifting just behind the drywall. Every time my phone buzzes, I hesitate before looking. Every mirror, every vent, every shadow feels like a possible doorway to a place I can't see. The worst part is, I still don't know who it was. I never saw a face. Just the voice, the movement, the evidence of someone who knew how to move through walls, how to live inches away from me without making a sound. I don't know how long they'd been in there before I heard them. I don't know how many others they've watched. And sometimes when I lie in bed and the room gets quiet, I press my ear to the wall. Just to check, just to make sure. But deep down, I know. The day I don't hear anything, that's when I should really start to worry. If you've ever stayed somewhere that didn't feel right, tell me what happened. I need to know I'm not the only one. And if you want more stories like this, the kind that stay with you, hit subscribe. You'll want to keep the lights on.